Welcome to the Rich Mind Podcast.
One thing you're going to realize if you're trying to achieve greater things in your life, if you're trying to go out and become the greater version of yourself, is that relationships is going to be the foundation to any success or failure that you might have. That's exactly the discussion we want to have here today. We want to talk about, the seasons of relationships. People come, people go. Why does that happen? We want to leave you with some real-time stories, some things that have impacted our lives and how we've moved through them, become friends, deeper friends with some, but then have had to let others go and be okay with that. I would be flat out honest. This is a subject that I've struggled with for a very long time. I want to be friends or friendly with everyone. If you come into my world, I want to be friends with you. It's been difficult to have some of that separation. Somebody will come into your life for a while, for a season, and then fade away. And I've questioned that for a long time, which is why we're going to have that discussion today with our friend Greg Young. He brought this to the table as far as a discussion topic. I love it because this is another piece of success, another piece of the mindset, another piece of the toolbox, the conscious awareness that once you begin to think through this in your own life, this is where you can really start there again, laying that foundation for yourself to build upon the success that you're looking for in your life. So, Greg, tell me more about these relationships, the ideas that you had. We had a little bit of a dialogue before we hit record, and we should be recording this because this is good stuff. Hopefully, we can replicate that here while we are recording.
Yeah, this is one thing that I heard, I think a couple years ago, which kind of blows my mind because I hadn't heard it until like my, early 40s at that point. But it's one of those things that, at least for me, it's like once I heard it, I couldn't unhear it or unthink it. It was, people are in your life for a season, for a reason, or for a lifetime. And immediately I just went through, middle school, high school, college, post-college, everything. And I went through, people that have come and gone, people that are still with me, to this day from high school maybe, or, those kind of years. And it made me not categorize, but like kind of categorize some people. And it's, nothing wrong with that because like you said, people come into our lives for a season sometimes and then they go, or we are that person that comes into other people's lives that leaves, and then there's reasons why people are in our life. And then there's also the ride or die, the people that are always going to be there, the lifetime. Friends and obviously family members and that kind of thing. But yeah, so I think it's just a fun conversation to, kind of have. And obviously we can talk about a lot of different, relationships. We're going to talk about reasons, purposeful ones are that kind of happen to us, ones that we initiate, a lot of different ways we can go with it, but it's going to be fun.
So let's start with a little bit more of a positive experience. I was trying to think of where I wanted to kind of begin the conversation and talking about relationships and talking about networking and getting to know folks that are maybe a little bit outside your comfort zone, a little bit maybe outside of your immediate circle of influence, friends, really close friends or even family. But so opportunities, as I've said many times, are everywhere. Business opportunities, thoughts, ideas, becoming aware of them are always around us all the time if you become aware of them and if you take action upon them. Right now, there's a potential opportunity for my wife and I with a business that we were introduced to this couple that are potentially going to be looking to sell their business, but we would not have met them had it not been a very, I would call a brief relationship with a young man that introduced us to this couple. So it was a random experience. I got to know this gentleman. We had some conversation. It wasn't like we were getting to get to know each other like really on a deep level, but we just had some basic conversations. We had some different interests. We were both here in the state of Indiana, so we had some interest about the state, about different investments, that type of thing. So we had some common interests. But with that said, through the process of this relationship that he and I were building, he introduced us to this couple that were operating this business that was right up the alley of what my wife and I are potentially interested in. Now, this was 2 years ago. And now this relationship with this couple has now blossomed into, now they're reaching out to us and we're talking to them, to who knows what that's going to lead to. But where I wanted to bring that as a positive spin with kind of reaching out and understanding that relationships are going to come, they're going to go. Sometimes they're going to be long. Sometimes they're going to be short. but you never know what that individual, if you go into it with the intention of being helpful, being giving, looking to give to the relationship rather than taking as much as you possibly can. And if that's reciprocated back to you, you never know where that could lead. Now, looking back on this experience, it's like, yeah, that made sense. Why this happened and why that happened. And it's like you start putting all the puzzle pieces together and you're like, wow, that's interesting how that all came to be. Now, I'm not saying this opportunity is going to lead to something huge down the road. That's not the point. The point is that it's even there because of this relationship that I was trying to build 2 to 3 years ago, that now it's starting to come back to me. And it's like, wow, that's just interesting. Same thing with our relationship, Greg. We met each other in a mastermind group. In passing, we didn't really speak a whole lot, I would say, even in that group, but we went to another conference. We kind of were interested in the same type of thing. And so we enrolled into a conference and attended it together. And when we did, we're like, hey, we want to connect. You want to grab dinner? All those kinds of things. And the next thing you know, we're sparking off conversations. We're having a good time. A few years later, I'm asking you to come on the podcast and we're having these conversations. You see what I'm saying? That's where relationships, if you're conscious about them and you look outside of your small circle of influence and just really try to be intentional with building some relationships outside of that circle, you just never know where it's going to lead. That's where I wanted to begin with that part, or at least this part of the conversation from me, from a positive standpoint. Yeah, I have a little bit more of a negative story to share in a few minutes, but we'll get to that as we go. So anyways, is that kind of the idea that you have, Greg, as far as your experiences as well?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously coming from, networking like you're talking about, and like you said, opportunities come, sometimes they feel like they're out of left field, but you planted that seed a couple of years ago and then all of a sudden they're coming back to you with this opportunity. So it wasn't just a random, cold call or something like that. They knew, oh, hey, Randy and his wife might be interested in this business opportunity because of the relationship you built. And that relationship with that person might be, for a short season of life or for a particular reason. Could be both. Doesn't have to be either or. And you're right. They can be positive. They can be negative. Just like, a lot of things in life. But for me, this was more of like when this awareness hit me of season, reason, lifetime, it really made me kind of accept the fact that this is going to happen. It happens to everybody. I know when I was in like high school, we're going to be best friends forever. And, we're going to live in the same city or same town and, whatever. That didn't happen. I think I'm close with maybe one, maybe two people from high school. Same thing with college and, 20 year, post college, that kind of thing. And that's okay. It just is what it is. People flow in and out of your life. And like I said, some people will stick to you or stick with you for the lifetime. And, whatever that means, it doesn't mean from, age 2 to the end of your life. It means the start of your relationship to the end. But I think just accepting the fact that, yeah, people are going to come and people are going to go. And I was reading a book in our book club a couple times ago, and they said, it said something to the fact of, you may not, you might have a best friend right now or have had one in the past, but your best relationship might be in the future. Like friendship, even relational, like you never know what's going to happen in the future. Right. So it was like really eye opening of like, I feel like throughout my life, I've had really great groups of friends, high school, college, even post college. But just the fact that like, oh yeah, like my best relationship could even be in the future. It could get even better than what I've had in the past. Like that's amazing. And that's like the attitude that I want to have, not, oh, this person's new. I met them too late in life where we're never going to have that bond or whatever. No, you can create a bond pretty quickly. And you don't have to compare it to high school friends or, friends in the past or anything. It's just a different friendship experience.
I love that thinking. So it almost opens up possibility.
Mm-hmm.
How we talked about comfort zones a lot in the last episodes. How much do you think that staying in the comfort zone or this friend circle, or how hard is it, in your opinion, has it been for you to break out of your quote unquote comfort zone to network? I've made it public here on the podcast many times. You're one of the best networkers I've been in a relationship with. You're just great at it, in my opinion. Now, I'm sure that pushes you outside your comfort zone to do that. how much do you think that plays a role into people kind of staying the same, staying in that smaller circle? Not claiming it's good or bad. It's just, if you choose to grow, if you choose to expand and reach for greater things or different things in your life, you're going to have to break out or break free from this comfort zone. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we can all fall into that, like you said, that comfort zone of friendship, even, relationship with a husband or a wife or a boyfriend, girlfriend. It's the devil, right? I know how that person acts, even if they don't treat me the best way, but I'm so comfortable, right? I want to stick around. And then friends are the same way. But I think the way I look at it, and maybe it probably was because of my upbringing, because my older brother went away to college, my older sister went away to college. So for me, it was like, all right, where am I going? It wasn't like, am I going to go away to college? It was just the norm in the household. And that forced me to choose a spot outside of New York because I wanted to go away. Because every time I talk to my brother and sister on the phone, they're like, "Oh, college is great. We're doing this. So, all these different experiences." I was like, "Oh, cool. I can't wait to, find where I'm going to go and have these experiences." So I went to Arizona, which is, pretty far away. And that just kind of kicked it off of like, all right, now I got to meet all these new people because nobody knew Greg from New York. And I think that's maybe why I'm pretty good at networking, is because I don't know, you're just curious and you ask people questions. And if you get along with them, you continue to ask them questions. And if you don't, you kind of move along. But I guess that was my way, not even consciously, but like subconsciously getting out of my own comfort zone, because I easily could have stayed on Long Island, hung out with my high school friends and figured out my next move. And nothing wrong with that, but I chose my path, and I'm very happy with the path and the friends I met. And so you can definitely stay in that comfort zone, but I think it's either a choice, or for me, it was the household I grew up in and the belief of I'm going to go away to college and it's going to be fun. And it was.
So this can be even with staying in the same job for a long time. You have friends. So in my retail days, one thing that would happen is I would actually get changed stores or locations once every year, 18 months sometimes after that. So you get to know folks, you get your own routines, the same building, the same people, the same customers. And the next thing you know, I'd get uprooted and sent to a brand new store, new everything. The systems were the same, the processes were the same basically, but the people were different. And so that challenged me a lot. This was in my mid 20s, of that belief or that understanding that, yeah, the change was going to be uncomfortable, but I was going to grow through it. And I'm glad I went through those experiences. In the moment, I absolutely hated it. I hated the change, just like anything. It was a comfort zone, even for myself. I've always hated that. As I mentioned, when I bring people into my life, I want to be friends. I want to go as deep as you possibly can. Now we're, best buddies, I'm talking about guy to guy or something like that, right? Buddies, friends. It's different when you're just in a working environment, but at the same time, it was, you would show up and see the same people doing the same things all the time, every day, 6-7 days a week. And so, yeah, it was a challenge for me to kind of move through that a lot of times in my early 20s. But I've had to realize that that's part of life. Wasn't something that I was necessarily taught. I've had to experience this through my life, to the point where I shared that with my daughter. She was probably in middle school, maybe at that time. And she had a friend that she was beginning to struggle with, meaning this friend was starting to separate. She was trying to start to move and go with a different crowd, which was leaving my daughter behind or alienated, just not with the same person. I shared this idea that, sweetheart, just like what we're talking about here today, people are going to come, people are going to go, and friends are going to, ebb and flow. You're going to have people come into your life and out of your life all the time. That was a tough discussion. She took that very, very hard, very similar to what I've had to experience on my own as well. So you might be having those same challenges out there for yourself. I mentioned that I had a little bit more of a negative experience, and that was with my father. My father was tough on me. And I'm sure those out there, tough is a relative word. Tough is meaning he didn't beat me or anything, but he was just challenging to me. He was really trying to almost tell me what to do all the time. With every aspect of my life, he was trying to dictate what I should or shouldn't do, which, as I was leading into my adult life, created a huge challenge for me, because I found myself unable to make basic life decisions as I was getting out on my own, creating my own family. So the decision I had to make was I had to break free from him. So this was where it was tough in the moment that I actually had to move. I mentioned to Greg, this was prior to the internet. So the communications the way they are today, there was no cell phones, there was no internet back then. So I didn't move out of the country. Greg mentioned about moving from New York to Arizona, but I did move a couple hours away. That gave me that separation from that individual to allow them to grow. I needed to grow into this, to the man that I was meant to be, to where I am today. Had I not made that choice, made that uncomfortable decision, I know for a fact that I would not be where I'm at here today having these discussions, because it wouldn't have pushed me outside that comfort zone of just the same, which has allowed me then to grow, to meet new people, to join new circles, to bring new friends, to meet Greg, which has been fantastic, to all kinds of things. So that's why I definitely want to leave the listeners with, and from my portion of this conversation, is just breaking outside of that comfort zone and understanding that sometimes you've got to let those things go. Sometimes you need to draw more people in. That's part of that networking as well. But just understand, people are going to come, people are going to go, and that's just part of it. Sometimes it could be difficult, sometimes it could be challenging, but it definitely could be just like this opportunity that I'm talking about. You just never know where that relationship could end up being, which is also super exciting as well. So yeah, any more thoughts on that, man?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, you can kind of take action. You can be the person who is changing the relationship or have the relationship changed on you. And I think just being okay with that, accepting it and understanding, because if I understood this 20, 30 years ago, it would have changed a lot of just my perception in my head of like, oh, this is fine. This is okay. This is normal. People, sometimes they cycle in, sometimes they cycle out. Sometimes they'll come back in your life, 10 years later or whatever, for whatever reason. And that's okay. Instead of trying to, force a relationship or hold on to one because it's comfortable, that's just, it's not going to help the relationship. It's going to strangle it one way or another. But yeah, realize that, you do this and you have this done to you, and it's just a natural cycle of life. So yeah, for me, it's the awareness. And like I said, I learned this like 2 years ago. So, just processing it all and everything, but it's kind of a nice feeling just to know and not have that pressure of, oh, are you going to be a lifetime friend? Or are you going to be a seasonal friend? Or just let it happen. And, things kind of just naturally evolve the way they do. And I think that's what, kind of works in networking relationships, business relationships, obviously personal relationships. Because, if one person is more needier than the other person can kind of feel that. And you just have to, it's a give and take. And like you said, with your daughter, sometimes people don't want to hang out with you, and that's okay. And sometimes you don't want to hang out with other people. And guess what? That's okay too. As long as you handle it with tact and, you're on the same page and the same level. Yeah, that's going to happen time and time again in life.
So you've moved halfway across the country twice, meaning you went from New York to Arizona, and then now you're currently in Florida. So you've moved basically back to the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, or tell the audience, how that has been through those processes. You mentioned how it was almost expected to leave your home in New York to go to Arizona, but then to make that decision, you had a good network of folks there in Arizona to then basically pick up and do that again and move back to Florida, help folks through that. Maybe they've got some challenges in their own mind that they know they should be interested, or they should be willing to let go of some of those past relationships that may or may not be serving them, to realize that they could be walking into the exact relationship that can propel them to whatever their dream is. I know that you've experienced that personally. Can you kind of, maybe add some color to that at all?
Yeah. So moving from Arizona to Florida, my wife and I, we made the decision obviously together, but we did that we put ourselves first. We didn't think of, oh, well, we have a great network here. We have great friends here. That played a part of it for sure. But at the end of the day, we wanted to make the move, live in Florida. It's close to the Caribbean, closer to some family. And, it's definitely, it's been challenging at times. Cause, in our mid 40s here and without any kids, both working from home, although I'm kind of shifting out of that a little bit. It's hard to meet people in your 40s, especially when you don't have kids. Like if you have kids, there's all the activities and little leagues and school. It's a little bit more, you're kind of like forced into, hey, meet some people and find the ones that you think are cool. We didn't really have that. So that's been a little challenging on our side here in Florida. And it made me really appreciate what I had in Arizona, even though I knew it. Like I knew I had great friends, even a great business network and everything. But yeah, it was one of those things where maybe we didn't weigh that as much when we were deciding to move to Florida. But at the same time, like you said, we want to try it out, and we can always move back to Arizona if we really want to, or we want to meet people out here and kind of just build our network out here and see what that looks like. And so yeah, just kind of like challenge ourselves a little bit to get out of our comfort zone a little bit and make a new circle of friends, and for me, a business network. And like you said, you never know who's going to come in your life, and for what reason and how long. And but yeah, it didn't come without challenges for sure. And I definitely, I don't regret it, but I definitely didn't calculate as much how that was going to make me miss my friends as much in Arizona and my network. Kind of starting from scratch, it was a lot harder than I thought, to be honest.
And how long has that been now that you've moved? Has it been a couple years now?
3 years.
3 years now. And so you said it was a challenge. You didn't calculate it as much as you in that moment. I'm sure it was probably a little bit more difficult moving from Arizona to Florida than it was your first move from New York to Arizona.
Yeah, for sure. Because from New York to Arizona, that was me going to college. So it was a whole bunch of other people, for the most part, coming from out of state, or some people from in state, but everybody was in the same boat of, hey, I'm 18 or 19 years old. We're freshmen. Let's hang it. It was so much easier when you're in your 40s and you move across country. There's no universal like goal or program that you're in. It's just life. So definitely a lot easier from high school to college than from, Florida or, Phoenix to Tampa.
But the point that I want to leave everybody with is that these folks are going to come, folks are going to go, and you just never know what you can learn from certain individuals in your life. I've mentioned and talked about my friend Mike that came into my life for a 2 year or so time frame. He taught me so much about taking challenges or seeing things as that you can accomplish anything, and just pushing yourself and challenging yourself. And I think about him all the time. Now, we don't communicate all the time. I haven't talked to him it's been years. It's been several years since we spoke. What happened was he moved. So we were neighbors, and then he moved. And then we just didn't keep in touch when he did move. But what I will take away from that relationship that we did have, I'll use it for the rest of my life. Same thing from a negative standpoint, but I will say that the negative part with my father is that that me moving away, making that decision to kind of separate from that relationship, brought us back together better than it ever had been. He began to realize what he was doing through conversations and things that we were having. And so he was beginning to understand that I was trying to become more, to do things differently than what I've ever been taught. And so then I was teaching him some of the things that I was learning out on my journey, which then he was enjoying that process, or starting to enjoy that process for himself as well before he passed. So you just never know. You never know where letting go of a relationship, or when something comes into your life, what that could be. I make reference all the time. Just Greg coming into my life was just really by happenstance. It wasn't anything that was planned. It wasn't anything. But at the same time, through some effort on both of our parts, we've built this relationship that who knows how long it will last. But I've had to let go of the expectation that it's going to be forever, because it may or may not be. I hope that it is, but it may or may not be. And I need to be okay with that. That's been a challenge. And so that's what I want to leave you with. You're thinking about that. Just where do you sit with that idea of these relationships in your life, and just being okay of the ebb and flow of them coming and then of them going, and realizing that, yeah, you'll get the right people at the right time in the right moments if you're willing to push yourself outside your comfort zone. So that's what I want to leave everybody with here today. Any final thoughts here before we start to wrap this one up here today, Greg?
Yeah, I think very similar. Just once you accept that fact, it is kind of just like calms you down a little bit, or at least for me, not putting pressure on like, oh, this person is going to be in my life forever because we get along so well and that kind of thing. Like you said, people move, people make decisions that, that affect you, but they don't, really think of you in the forefront, and that's okay. So that for me anyway, accepting the fact that, you know, you never know where a relationship is going to go or how long it's going to last. Like you said, it's just very calming because that's just the way it's going to be. And you can't really change that in life. So if you can't change it, then don't worry about it.
There's things that you can control and there's things that you can't. And this is one of those things that you can impact it. You can show up, you can put some effort into it, but you can't necessarily control the outcome at the end of the day. And that's, once again, that was probably the big wake up call, the big thing that I've had to learn for myself. So I definitely just wanted to make sure you understand that moving forward as well. If you want to grow and become a different version of yourself, you might have to push yourself outside this circle of comfort to meet new folks, to stretch yourself in with conversations, networking. You might need to move. There's so many different things, but you've got to understand that that's part of the process. And if you're listening to us on the Rich Mind podcast, you're trying to become a better version of yourself. That's what we just want to make sure that we're encouraging you to do, is to think through that process and understand that it's just normal to have people come, to have people go through that process. And it's very normal in everyday life. It has been for myself, and it sounds like it definitely has been for Greg as well. So we appreciate your time and attention. Hopefully this message has been valuable. If you wouldn't mind sharing the message of the Rich Mind podcast with your family and friends, we'd greatly appreciate that. We're trying to obviously spread the word and try to help people just see life a little bit differently than maybe what you're hearing on the everyday podcast out there. We're trying to share some real life stories, trying to just share some ideas, some different concepts that hopefully will resonate with you to hopefully have you go out there and to accomplish and start doing some different things in your life that you've really never thought it was possible, right? You didn't necessarily even believe, but we're here to encourage you. So if we can help you in any way, reach out to us, info@richmind.co, and let us know. We definitely try to give you any resources that we have. We can definitely try to point you in the right direction with different people, different resources. You can obviously collect the resources that we have available on our website as well. They're all for free there. And take a look and see what you find that might resonate with you. So go out there, have a fantastic day, focus on being great, and go out there and build some relationships. And who knows where that will take you. And we just encourage you to do that every single day and every single moment that you have available to you. So have a fantastic day, focus on being great. We'll come back with the next episode again very soon. Until then, folks, bye now.
Thank you for joining us today on the Rich Mind podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and share it with someone you know. Also, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite platform and never miss an episode. One last thing, don't ever forget that your mind is the first place where wealth is created. Keep dreaming big, take action, and together, let's build wealth, a legacy, and a life we love.